Hello, I'm Mitch Davenport at Jackie Jung and Associates. On my right is Dr. Jackie Jung, and on my left is Megan Heffernan. And Megan's a therapist, Jackie is a clinical psychologist. We want to talk to you today about self-esteem, and we have a few different aspects of it that we want to share. What I would like to share with you are it's kind of the origin of self-esteem, how it develops within us. I saw a Facebook ad, or not an ad, but a Facebook post recently that said, don't worry if other people don't like you, they're having a hard enough time liking themselves. And I thought that was pretty profound. Also, I have a friend who gets really mad when he feels that somebody has disrespected him. And I asked him, well, do you respect yourself? And he thought a minute, and then he said no. So here was an individual seeking to get their self-esteem from outside validation. So that brings us back to, where does self-esteem come from? Well, the first point is it comes from our relationship with our attachment figure when we are young. Experts tell us that early childhood experiences are critical for how our personality develops. When an infant's needs are met, and met in a timely and appropriate manner, the infant begins, well, there's two aspects. There's the physical development of the brain, which I'm not going to get into, other than to say that our brain is geared to develop physically based on our outside social interactions. And so if you're applying that, experts tell us that our early childhood experiences are critical for the development of our personality. And it has clearly been shown through much research that the brain is set up to respond to social interactions. And the way the brain develops physically, especially in the first 2 years of life, and then the next would be about at 6 years, but when the brain's developing physically, it's dependent upon the social interactions for what part of the brain is developing and what it is used for, that part of the brain. So we've got brain development, which will make a difference in our adult life. But what else we have are the needs being met by the attachment figure. And if the attachment figure, in our culture, it's usually the mother. It's not always. Sometimes it's dad or grandmother or someone else. But what we find is that when the caregiver, the primary caregiver, attends closely to an infant's needs, the infant begins to feel like they are a worthwhile person to their attachment figure. Examples of what an attachment figure would do would be like changing the infant's diaper when it needs to be changed, feeding the infant when it's hungry, taking care of the infant's needs. Even at a level of infancy, we begin to develop our self-esteem. My second point is we get our self-esteem from feedback we get from our environment. And I'm not going to take a lot of time on this one. But I'm thinking back to my own life when I was growing up. I always had a big head. You can see right now I have a big head. Big head in other ways too, right, Megan? I have a big head, and kids used to call me fish face or ape man. And you can imagine it has taken me almost my entire adult life to get to a place of feeling good about myself, because I always was influenced by those early childhood experiences. So we know that our environment has an impact on us, and closely related to that, this is the third point, it's important to realize that it's not just how people treat us, but it's how we think people think about us.
Right.
Okay? So the truth of the matter is, unless they tell us, we don't know for sure what somebody else is thinking about us. Yeah. So what we tend to do is make it up. And we make it up based on our own range of experiences in life and our own lens that we view life through. My last point is that we develop self-esteem by living up to our values. And the best, well, I don't know if it's the best example, but one example that I experienced recently is I was leaving the post office and I was walking down the steps and there was a man sitting there and he looked like the stereotypical homeless man. And as he sat there and I came by, he asked if I could spare some change for some food or a cup of coffee. And I said no. And I went and got back in my car and drove away. And I felt really badly because I have a value. My value is that people, regardless of their place in life and their status socially and their economic situation, that cut, man, I'm having a hard time today.
You're doing really well.
Well, thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Lastly, we develop our self-esteem by living up to our values. For example, I was coming out of the post office the other day and what appeared to be a homeless person was sitting alongside the steps and asked me for some money. I said no, went and got in my car and drove away. And I felt horrible because one of my values is helping people that have less than myself. But I didn't live up to that value. Instead, I went against that value. And I used the excuse, well, maybe he would use the money for drugs. Well, the reality is I could have went and bought him a cup of coffee or bought him a fast food sandwich. So there could be, so in summary, we develop our self-esteem in 4 ways. From our experience with our infant attachment figure, from the feedback we get from our environments, from what we think others think about us, and by whether or not we're living up to our values. Thank you. Who's next? Jackie?
Oh, very good, Mitch. Thank you for the thorough explanation of how to improve our self-esteem. I just documented it down, a couple of points I may discuss a little bit later according to Mitch's speech. And I only have one thought to add on to, it's about self-esteem. How do you build on, what do you build on in order to increase your self-esteem? I think the first step, is more, what I'm talking more like a narrow channel. The first thing, you have to know who you are. You can't build your self-esteem on nothing. If for somebody, I don't know who I am. What does who I am mean? Means what kind of person I am, relate to Mitch's speech, what my values are, what I can compromise when it comes to my value, what I cannot. What's my strength, especially what's my strength, and what are my weaknesses. And in addition to that, who I am is I'm okay with. Okay, and in addition to know who we are and accept who we are, accept for both our strengths, weaknesses, is, embrace who we are. For example, in middle school, that's what I usually tell parents and kids. It's a pretty tough in middle school. It's identity forming, because when you're younger, everybody seems like similar. They're all kids. When you get older, people get busy. They don't have those pecking order no more. In high school, kids start dating, start having jobs. They try to leave each other away, or they have sports. But in middle school, you're kind of trying to find your cohort, your groups. Are you a jock? Are you a nerd? Are you a geek? Are you a preppy girl? Are you, this is the time pretty tough for kids. So a lot of bowling, pecking, and trying to seeking the identity part. So that's middle school is crucial to develop self-esteem. And I will promote therapy during this time. If some child felt being bullied, not confident, have self-esteem issues, come to therapy. Talk to a therapist about these things, because it's forming. It could have impacted a long term in their lives. Let me see. I don't have many to add on. Children need to know who they are and be okay with it. in order to build a self-esteem. And also, the last thing I want to say is it is okay to be different. I always promote being different. As I put it on the company Facebook webpage, I have a sentence there. I said, you cannot think or act the same as everybody else, but expect to do better. I like that phrase. I use it a lot, frequently. So being different is, in my opinion, good. Otherwise, you will be the same successful on the same level as everybody else. If you want to be more successful, you have to be different from other people. That, of course, it comes to a different aspect. How we're going to promote that's a different story. But I'm just saying, in this perspective, I always promote being different. And I just think it's wonderful. Individualism, being different, then you can achieve more. Back then, the last thing back then to what Mitch just said about how you increase your self-esteem in a not ideal situation. People call you names. People say some peers say things that kind of hurt you in a way. How you're going to deal with that, the coping skills. One of the things that just on top of my head, I was thinking that imaginary exercise. I think that will be helpful. Some people call it illusion, whatever you call it. But when you go through a tough time, the imagery of being successful, being accepted, achieving a lot to carry you through that tough time. It may not be a bad thing. Of course, I know some therapists have taught that, having illusions is not as good as has realistic. But at the same time, we have so many techniques, so-called, right? When we were suffering, when we were failing, how we're going to carry ourselves through. So imagery, picturing, just give yourself 10 minutes at night, picturing you're in a moment, in a zone that you're achieving. You're everything you are. So I think that's taking care of your heart. I don't think that's a bad thing. That's just some technique. I think it will work for not working for everybody, but work for some people. Try that one. So that's all my speech. So I'm going to turn to Megan. Thank you.
You're on.
All right. So I wanted to talk just a little bit more in detail, or some specific examples of how we can improve our self-esteem or build upon and maintain our self-esteem. Mitch and Jackie both kind of talked a little about the environment, and Jackie mentioned illusions, or how we think about ourselves or our future, what we're capable of. And my first main point is just being surrounded by positive in our thoughts, positive in our environment, the people that we are around. Are they positive people? Are they people that support us and value us or not? And also with opportunities. I think that was some of what Jackie was talking about with, thinking about illusions or what we want in our life. Are there opportunities out there? What do you want to go after? And taking those opportunities and seeing yourself become successful and find more and more opportunities to be involved more with groups and places and things that are positive. The second main point I have is that the more that we practice positivity, or just being in positive environments, and the more consistent we are with doing that, the more automatic that becomes. Mitch was talking about our brain development, and he didn't really mention how throughout our life we always have the opportunity to rewire and build new circuits in our brain. Right. So if something hadn't developed fully or was weak in its development, even in early childhood, even as adults, we have the opportunity to make new pathways within our brain and retrain it or rewire it to be more positive, think more positive, which then can help improve our self-esteem. Yeah. It also becomes more routine and easier the longer we practice and the more consistent that we are with being positive and in our positive environments. Our thoughts and how we think about ourselves lead to our feelings. That's a pretty common concept that a lot of people have probably heard of before, but not everyone takes the time to realize why exactly does that happen. Just because I think something doesn't mean that I feel it. is something that I hear a lot from people. And so my response to that is, over time, with continued practice, the more that you allow yourself to think in these positive ways, the more that you're rewiring your brain. And it does then take hold at some point, and how we are thinking will then start to equate more directly to how we are feeling about ourselves, our mood, about our situations, our opportunities, about our experiences in our life. And the more positive, the more we build our core, the more we have positive self-esteem.
Right. Like not calling ourselves names, like I'm 4 eyes, or when you try to think negative about yourself, you catch yourself.
You mean when I think like, you're an idiot, Mitch?
Right. Try not to think about the negative. Call ourselves names.
Yes, and that builds into my third and final point, is that we should challenge our personal expectations or our personal views. So if I am working on a task and I mess up, I could, like Mitch said, say, oh, I'm so stupid, I can't handle this, I'm just no good at all. Instead, I could use some positive reframing and say, okay, maybe I didn't do my best job on this task, but I'm proud that I made it through. And I am going to continue working on this because I know that I can be successful. And I'm proud that I stick through things and I work hard. Those are positive thoughts, positive affirmations. And it's framed in a way that allows us to limit the amount of shame that we feel. Hence, it will be helpful in maintaining or building up our self-esteem. I also want to mention with setting goals, oftentimes, and think about New Year's resolutions. Everybody knows that at the turn of a new year, a lot of people make very high, goals for themselves. I'm going to go to the gym every day or 5 times a week, every day this year. And people tend to joke about how by the end of January, most people's goals have either fallen off or been abandoned or just drastically reduced. And a lot of people will become upset with themselves. And, some of those negative thoughts and self-perceptions can creep in. So when you're making a goal for yourself, it's really important to size them down into something more manageable, more realistic, and think about the steps of the goals. If we set our goal too far out in the future, we don't give ourselves opportunities for success along the way. If we are focused so much on that end goal, like if I'm a freshman in high school and my goal is, I want to go to this college, that's a wonderful goal to have, but what are the steps that are going to help me throughout high school along the way? If I'm, in the middle of my sophomore year and I get an F grade in one of my classes, I might start thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never going to meet this goal. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'll never get into college. Instead, if we, rework that goal to say, during this year, or during this class, I'm going to do what? And then tack that on to that overall goal, one failed grade is not going to stop you from still reaching that end goal or still feeling proud of yourself along that process. If I'm in that class where I got that failed grade, yes, that would be frustrating, but instead of saying, I'm an idiot, I'm never going to reach my goals, I might as well just drop out, I can say something like, that was a really tough class, I did my best, I don't need that class to still meet my goal, so I'm going to keep working hard. I know I'm a committed hard worker. That's a positive framing.
Right.
The last is that we should be challenging how we assign worth or success. And that kind of goes along with that goal example. For the person in the example I used about wanting to go to college, for them, going to college was very important. It is a status based goal, and for everybody, that looks different. Some people don't need to have a goal of going to college, don't want to go to college. That's not something that they personally value, which speaks to what Mitch was saying. You need to identify what's important to you. I just the other day was talking to a high school youth that has been participating in some sports and feeling like they weren't getting a lot of fulfillment out of it. And so we had a discussion about what was your intention? What did you expect to gain from your sport participation? And there were 2 main things, some exercise and a social opportunity. because of her particular, experiences, she didn't feel that either of those were being met to the degree that she wanted. So instead of having the goal be continue to press into, being active on this sport team, are there other ways, other opportunities that you could take to provide yourself with the same ability to meet those needs? Could you join a book club or an art club at school that allows for more social opportunity? Could you maybe meet some friends there that you could spend time with outside of school? Maybe some of those friends also have a value of health and fitness or exercise, and you can arrange sometimes to get together and go for a walk or lift some weights together. There's multiple ways that we can meet our needs and fill our values, and that all will contribute. The more that we are true to ourselves in those ways and go after those things that are meaningful to us, the more that we will feel positive about ourselves and have positive self-esteem.
Yes.
Very good.
Very good. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking time out from your busy schedule to watch this video.
Thank you.
Okay, we did great.
We did.
Smooth.
So I just have one thing that I was thinking while Megan was talking, for people, that if something happened in their life that suddenly deterred them from their whole dream, so-called goal, then what? For example, if I want to be a marathon runner and suddenly some car accident happened, knock on wood, and I have my legs amputated, and then what? Am I still able to develop appropriate, healthy self-esteem?
Yeah, I think that being able to look at what goal you did have, how you did envision your life, and being able to pull out what aspects are transferable, what new goal, how can you adapt your goal to still use the same foundation. If my goal is I'm going to get into this particular college and this particular program, but that's not going to be a possibility for me,
Right.
I could adapt that to say, what was it that I was hoping to accomplish in that program? I felt that I would have good networking opportunities, or I know that that program is a feeder into this particular business or agency that I wanted to work for. Likely there are other opportunities to meet those same needs. So how can I adapt my path to still get there?
It's like, what's my ultimate actually goal? To go through school or get a medal is just part of the ultimate goal in life. What's my ultimate goal? Is it just sense of achievement, or sense of I can do something that other people cannot do? So figure out that one. That does require a lot of adaptability, though.
Yep.
For some people, a lot of people rigid. That might be very hard. Those people that if I bend, then I break. That might be very tough.
Yeah, and a lot of people have shoulds. We should ourselves a lot. I should have done better. I should have been able to win that race. And sometimes the shoulds that we have really are not helpful at all in pretty much any way. Sometimes we realize when we start dismantling our shoulds that we put a lot of shoulds on ourselves unnecessarily. I can even joke about some of mine. If I'm reading a book, sometimes I will hear myself saying, "Oh, you should have read tonight. You should have been able to finish that book by now." But does it really matter if I'm reading for leisure, if I finished that book already? Did it really matter? And sometimes, or a lot of times, that answer is no. So if we can let go of that expectation, that unnecessary should, we can avoid feeling down or feeling shamed or like we haven't accomplished something.
Some years ago, Megan, I saw someone wearing a t-shirt that said, "I will not should on myself today."
No.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's it.
I'm good.
All right. Thank you, everybody.